Hey, what's up? It's Chuck from the band Simple Plan, and you're listening to my friend Morgan Richards on Radio Cardiff.
Hey, I'm Morgan Richards from Radio Cardiff for 90.7 FM. I'm extremely pleased to say that I'm backstage here at the O2 Academy in Bristol. I'm joined by a band who have always been taking one for the team, producing summer paradise anthems over the last decade and a half. It's of course those perfect French Canadians from Montreal. It's the wonderful Chuck of Simple Plan.
Hey, man, how are you?
Hey man, you okay?
That was a good intro. I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Cool, man.
So how's things?
Things are great. Tour has been awesome. Glad to be here in Bristol. Glad to be back. It's been a minute for us. So yeah, no, things are great. The shows have been awesome, and the new record is finally out, so it feels good.
Yeah. So everything's perfect.
Things are as good as they can be. Yeah, there's always room for improvement, but I would say overall, I think as far as the band is concerned, we're very excited. We're very proud that we have this record out. The shows have been going awesome. We've been playing huge shows all over Europe for the last month. This is actually the very tail end of the first leg of our big European tour. We're coming back in May and doing more dates, like another month. All over Europe, and it's been awesome. We played Prague. We did like 4,000 people there, and 3,000 people in Milan, and like really great shows all over. And I think it's exciting for us to see that even though this record took a minute to make, the fans are still there. They still love the band. They still care, and they're still showing up. So yeah, it's really awesome.
So, Chuck, of course, you and Simple Plan are finally back with your first new record in 5 years now with Take One for the Team. I bet you all are just extremely pleased to have this new full-length out now, with all you showing how proud you feel of this material and how it came together.
Yeah, we worked really hard on the album. It was really important for us to make something that we would be really, kind of like you said, very proud of. And our goal with every album that we put out is to make sure that we put out something that we feel our most hardcore fans could consider their favorite album. That's always the goal. Like, we want to make sure that every song on there could be their favorite song. So that's why it takes a minute. Like, we don't want to put out a record just as an excuse to go back on the road, or to us, maybe it's an old school way of thinking, but they're still really important to us. They're still like a big statement that says a lot about what the band is, and they kind of define your career in some ways. Like, for us, it's funny, we almost look at our lives as per album. Like, oh yeah, that was on the second record that happened, or I got married on the fourth record. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like those things where they become huge milestones in our lives and our career. And this one, we've put a lot of energy and effort into it. We wrote for a year and a half, like over 80 songs for it, and we were in the studio for 6 months and making sure it sounded exactly like the way we wanted. And towards the end, we were pretty much done with the record, and we started to play it back, and we just felt like it was missing something, and it was missing some of that kind of classic Simple Plan sound. So we kind of look at each other, and me and Pierre, who do most of the writing for the band, well, actually all the writing, and said, you know what, it's not done yet, it's not finished, it's not right. So we went back and wrote 3 more songs and went back to the studio and recorded them, and it took a little longer than we wanted to, but at the end of the day, now that we have the record out and kind of seeing the fans' reaction, it was all worth it, because they're really loving the album, and a lot of them came up to us and after the shows or at soundcheck parties or whatever, and they're like, man, this is my favorite record that you guys ever made. And for a band that's been around for 17 years, 5 albums, to hear that, I think it's a sign that that I think we did the right thing by making sure that we made the record that we wanted to make and that our fans wanted to hear.
And as you mentioned, lately you guys always seem to unintentionally leave a big gap between records, working on these songs for almost 2 years prior. For you, is it just really vital to hone everything in and push the bar constantly so everything is just at its best?
Yeah, I mean, that's how we look at it. I mean, that's there's a guy that actually the guy who signed us to our to our first record deal, and only one. On Atlantic Records, he had a really good piece of advice. Said, hey, there's never a good time for a bad record, and there's never a bad time for a good record. And obviously nowadays, with the way that the industry has evolved and changed, maybe that timing has become even more important, and bands want to just put out stuff every year and always and kind of not be forgotten. And like we took a little bit of a risk by having like almost 4 years and a half in between the last record and this one. And there's definitely a risk of like people moving on to other bands and whatnot, but we just feel like if you put out quality music, and if you put out an album that doesn't have a bunch of fillers on it, and that feels like every song is important and they mean something to the fans, you're gonna be okay. And that's what we believed in. And that's been sort of our kind of motto for our whole career. And so far, like we've been here 17 years and it's still working for us. So we don't really want to change that.
And one thing I've always admired from you guys is that you always love to mix things up on albums and have a few curveballs, still producing that signature punk-esque sound from the early days, but having some more pure pop anthems on latest releases. It must be just that extra bit fun for now as artists to keep doing different stuff, and that maybe some that you couldn't have done 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the band is definitely evolving in ways that maybe in 2002 I could not have predicted. Like if you told me like we would have like the biggest song of our career in the UK with Sean Paul, and it'd be like a summery kind of reggae, beachy kind of song, I'd be like, I don't think that's quite possible. But things evolve, and our tastes evolve as well, while at the same time, like you said, like still staying true and very loyal to who we are as people, and what we grew up loving and playing. I think if you hear the new record, like it has more pop punk and more classic Simple Plan sound than I think lots of the records we've made throughout our career. Like it's really like, in some ways, it's us going back to our roots and really kind of embracing where like the scene that we come from, but still trying to make it sound modern and not trying to make a record that could have come out in 2002. Trying to make it like, what should Simple Plan sound like in 2016? So it's a challenge, and I think so once you've established that you have that classic sound, and you have those sort of kind of more traditional Simple Plan song, then it's for us it's time to try like you said, a few curveball, a few different things, keep things fresh, keep things interesting for us and for our fans too, like, and take a few risks, and hope that maybe with the new songs and with the different styles we can reach new people and they can discover what this band is all about. And it's funny, like we meet a lot of fans, and some of them are like, man, I've been following you since 2002, like that's or since 2004, the second record. And then you have some fans who are like, man, I discovered you with Summer Paradise or with Jet Lag on the last record, and I went back and I heard all your albums. So it's like, that to me is exciting. It's amazing that our old school fans are staying with us, but it's also really cool when somebody completely new that never heard of us discovers us and is like, hey man, I love this band, I'm gonna start following you now, because that's how you stay vital. That's it, because if you don't have that, you just sort of become a band that's is managing their decline, and we don't want to be that.
And in the past, you've had a huge host of musical guests from completely different artists featuring on material, from Mark Hoppus from Blink-182 to Sean Paul and even Natasha Bedingfield. Has it felt quite surreal to work and collaborate with so many unique artists in recent years and having a big effect, whatever their previous genre was?
Yeah, what? I think it makes it interesting for us. It's cool. I think it makes people talk about the album. It makes people pay attention. It brings some fans that maybe never heard of us to kind of check out, the record, and also like it brings different flavors to the songs. I think musically, I think it's important to, to keep it fun and to kind of branch out and stretch the boundaries of what Simple Plan can be or how people perceive it. Like for example, on this record, having Our City on Singing in the Rain is like, it brings that kind of Caribbean super cool flavor that obviously we didn't grow up with that kind of music, and so they're legit, like they know they breathe and they live and breathe that kind of music. So when they come on the track, it really gives it like a really fun flavor. So that was really cool. But then again, having Jordan from Newfound Glory, which is a band that's been around for I think as long or even a little longer than we've been, it's really cool to have that kind of like to have like a friend of ours on the record like that, but also for the fans. They love both bands, so they're excited when we do something together. It's always cool, I think, as a fan to see bands that you like work together and do something fun like that. So it was cool to have Jordan on, and like we've been doing pretty good with the pop punks, guest vocalists. We've like you said, we had Mark, we had Joel from Good Charlotte, we had Alex from All Time Low, we had Rivers from Weezer, and now Jordan from Newfound Glory. So we're working our way towards like having every awesome pop punk singers ever.
And Chuck, just a couple more very quick things now before you go. This week actually celebrates the 14th year anniversary of your debut record, No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls, that really arguably changed your lives forever. Now, I know you guys are really passionate about this new material, but with it being so popular of bands revisiting previous albums for tours and stuff, is that something you'd be interested in doing maybe along the line?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I see a lot of bands doing, and I think it's funny, we're kind of entering that very sweet point of like nostalgia in a way for people that grew up, that that were like teenagers when that record came out. Now they're 30 or late 20s or like mid 30s, and I think a lot of the people stay attached to the music that they love when they were teenagers, and these records become a way to sort of relive maybe years where things were easier, or things were like life was just less complicated. So I think there's something, I understand the attraction for it for sure. It's something that we've never really considered before, but now, like, knowing that next year will be like 15 years for the album, it's a pretty crazy milestone. And the fact that still here and still doing it, and that these songs still mean a lot to a lot of people, it makes us want to think about it, and want to consider it. Like, how do we celebrate that? How do we acknowledge that milestone? And I'm not sure if it's a tour, or if it's a like a documentary or a movie or something. I'm not sure, but definitely I feel like we should do something to celebrate that. But I haven't figured out exactly what that's going to be. I think a tour could be interesting. I just don't know. Like, it's funny because a lot of our fans, I think, love the first record, but they also love the newer stuff. So it's like, how do you, I'm just not sure yet. But definitely we want to do something special for it.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. And with all that now, of course, you're going to be extremely busy for the near future, just continuing to touring and supporting this new record. But what else can we really expect now from Simple Plan in the near future?
Well, I mean, it's primarily going to be a lot of touring, because we finally have the record out, and now people want to see us everywhere. So it's like, we have like every day on Twitter, it's like, when are you coming to Colombia? When are you coming to Australia? When are you coming to Japan? When are you coming to China? It's like, okay, we're coming. This year is just all touring. We definitely have like some extra songs that didn't make the record, so maybe there's something to do there with like an EP or something down the line, but probably not this year. Probably a little later. And then there's always that project that I have to do, like a movie about the band and something. So that's in the back of our heads as well. So there's a lot of different things going on. But as far as 2016, I think it's primarily going to be like just playing a lot of shows everywhere around the world.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, that's about it. Cheers, Chuck, for taking time out to have a quick chat with me.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Best luck now with everything in the near future, and hope we can catch up with you guys again very soon.
Awesome. Right. Thanks.